Hello everyone, I'm Drew Davis. Welcome to Lipscomb Legends interview with Dr. Doy Hollman, longtime Lipscomb professor. Doy, how long have you taught at Lipscomb University? You just recently retired.
Yes, I retired. We had the retirement reception, December the 5th last year, 2016. But I came on the scene in 1975 as a one-year appointment teacher.
So 1 year turned into 41 years.
That's true. They added 4 decades to that 1 year.
I guess they liked you after your first year.
Well, I liked it. I do know that, and they at least tolerated me and kept on tolerating me. And I finally achieved tenure status and finally professor rank.
And you taught math.
Taught mathematics. Well, actually, I taught Bible a couple of, maybe 3 times under Dr. Dr. Baxter, Bachelor Barrett Baxter. He let me teach Bible, and that was a real honor, one of the biggest honors I had at Lipscomb. He let me teach, I think, 3 Bible courses, I think in the summer of 1977 or 78. And then Brother Howard Horton allowed me to teach a course or 2 in Bible. But most of my teaching was in mathematics, which I call the language of the universe.
So you were a math major in college?
Yes.
Master's degree, PhD?
Yes.
Where'd you go to college?
I went to a junior college, Martin Junior College in Pulaski, Tennessee, although I wanted to come here. I didn't have the money. I had no one to encourage me or to borrow the money. So I went 2 years to that junior college, then I went to Middle Tennessee State College, University, in Murfreesboro, and got my bachelor's degree, started teaching, then I came back and got my master's degree at Middle Tennessee State University, and then I taught a while, and then 1973, I left secondary teaching. I went to University of Mississippi, Ole Miss, and there I got my PhD degree.
Why Ole Miss?
Well, I checked around a few places, and other things being equal, my brother was teaching there. He didn't teach math, but he was there. I could have enjoyed other places, no question about it, but I was there and I did my best. I enjoyed it.
That's a lot of math. What did you enjoy about math?
Well, it's a language of the universe. And the history of math, my favorite math course, is a wonderful course because you can, I started my class out with the history of math is his story. It's God's story. And math is a branch of knowledge that enables us to know about the universe that he made. And the discovery of calculus was a turning point in the scientific revolution, the mathematical revolution, because it is a mathematics that will allow you to study things in motion, the limit concept, not a static math like the Greeks, but mathematics in motion. Acceleration.
Come out of Isaac Newton's thinking
Yes.
at Oxford and Cambridge?
He independently discovered the limit concept, that the derivative and the integral were definitely related in a very unique way. Now, Gottfried Leibniz also discovered calculus in Germany, independent of Newton. But he had a different approach, but obviously it was the same calculus when you boil it down.
Are mathematicians born, or are they raised and learn that skill set?
That's a good question.
Were you a math nerd as a child?
Well, I like math, and math came easy.
For a lot of people, it does not come easy.
Well, that is true, and I've found out that math anxiety is a real emotion in high school and college. But I didn't have the anxiety that a lot of them had. I didn't excel in mathematics, but I passed every course I took, and I made A's a lot of the time. But I enjoyed math, still do.
Is it true that there are thousands of math problems that have not been solved?
Oh, I guess that's the case. At the turn of the 20th century, I think they came out like 100 unsolved problems, but there were far more than that. But many of those have been solved. But there are hundreds, if not thousands, yes. I could probably delve into something and come up with a question and make it a problem.
Right, right.
I don't know the answer to. I don't know if anybody does. Maybe so.
What exactly is an algorithm?
An algorithm is a procedure, it's a process by which you can follow its steps and start with the hypothesis and reach the conclusion. It allows you to solve a problem and similar problems the same way every time, algorithmic.
Is it more mathematics or physics? Or both, combination?
Well, it can be algorithm in computer science or economics or mathematics or any of the sciences.
Okay.
An algorithm is a process, a sequence of steps that will give you the desired results every time.
Mm-hmm. How did you wind up teaching at Lipscomb? Did you come here and apply, or did they say, hey, we want you to come here and be part of our faculty?
Well, I got I was ABD orbit dissertation at the end of the spring semester 1995. And I started filing applications. Freed Hardeman, Harding, University of North Alabama.
You said 1995.
75.
75.
I'm sorry, 75, yes. And then including Lipscomb. Of course, I didn't get a yes to any of those.
Oh, so you're putting out applications
Yeah.
to a number of schools.
A number of colleges. I taught at BGA 3 years prior to going to Ole Miss to work on my PhD degree.
What's BGA?
Battleground Academy.
Oh, yeah, okay, the high school?
Yes.
Yeah.
At that time, they still had some boarding students. It was all boys. And I enjoyed that. I had small classes. I taught the highest math I had, and I enjoyed that. But I wanted to get into college teaching. So I went back to school, and I don't regret it. So I filled out the applications in 1975, and then one of the math teachers here at Lipscomb, I reckon, suddenly quit.
An opportunity.
Yeah, late summer, the providence of God. So they called me up, and one day, I want you to know, I had an interview with Mac Wayne Craig.
Another Lipscomb legend.
Yes. Brother Pullius, Dr. Pullius.
Former president of Lipscomb.
Right, 31 years of president. And then Dr. Robert Curse. Those three in one day. So they want to make a decision. They'd either get me or move on to another one in that one day. So Mary Emily Gore at that time called me. So we made arrangements. I came up and survived those interviews. As I look back, that was a rather daunting day to sit down in front of those three gentlemen.
Yeah, that was the committee, wasn't it?
Yes. And they said immediately, yes, come on a 1-year appointment. 1-year appointment.
Well, one thing that I always wondered about Lipscomb University at that time was David Lipscomb College.
Yes.
It was a small private Christian college, and the professors that taught here, the administrators that worked here, they loved the university. They did not get paid as well as a big state school. They couldn't make more money at University of Tennessee, Memphis State. You could have taught anywhere.
I took a cut coming from junior high in Mississippi, junior high school, to teach here.
You took a cut and pay to teach at the university level.
Got evidence of that. I found it a few weeks ago. I've been looking through some old papers. It was just half of an 8.5 by 11 sheet. It said you'll be paid this much for 3/4 teaching. Under
What did you
$9,000.
enjoy most about your time at Lipscomb?
Well, teaching mathematics, or teaching students mathematics in a Christian environment. I didn't have that at BGA or Russellville, Alabama, which I enjoyed that. I taught in military school in Camp Hill, Alabama, Lyman Ward Military Academy. I enjoyed those places, but it was not in a Christian atmosphere. I could not, if I wanted to, lead in prayer or read a scripture or refer to God. And I could do that here, and I did.
Right. Had academic freedom and spiritual freedom as well. Yeah, it's a very rare thing.
Yes.
And Lipscomb always seemed to attract good people and keep them. That's why a lot of people, when they came here, they taught 30, 40, 50 years here. It just felt like family.
Yes.
And it was a rare thing when I look back on it, that it was such a small university, but it attracted so many good people here. Who were some of the people that were here during your years here?
Well, when Brother Earl Dennis, Dr. Earl Dennis, who was a math professor, became academic dean.
Was he head of the math department at the time?
No, he never was.
He wasn't. He just was a renowned math
He
teacher.
could have been. I think he could have been, but he didn't want to. They had to urge him, strongly urge him to leave the classroom to become the academic dean after the Pulius era.
Right.
But he did go and did a great job. I really admire him. I wrote a eulogy, and I said in the eulogy, and I said it from my heart, he did more for me and to me in a good way than anyone in the Lipscomb family.
Wow. Had a good mentor.
Yes, I did. He realized that when I came, earning less than $9,000 a year, that I needed a second job. And he suggested I go over to Nashville State Tech, and he'd recommend me.
Really?
So I started teaching over there.
He taught in 2 universities?
Well, Nashville State Tech College.
Oh, the Tech College.
Nashville State Tech College, yes. But he didn't have to do that.
Right.
And in the eulogy, I mentioned a lot of things, not necessarily math related, that he helped me. Just a great friend. And I have one of the trivia questions in my book. He called me and other people Chief. Hey, Chief. Generals, I mean, hey, Chief.
Right. Now, and you also preached as well.
Yes.
From what I understand.
Paragon Mills, as Pat mentioned. I preached a few years at Paragon Mills, and I preached several years at College Grove Church of Christ. Then I preached at Littleville Church of Christ, which is about halfway between Mount Juliet and Lebanon, Tennessee, in Wilson County.
Wow.
Then I filled in some.
Mm-hmm. And you now attend the Granny White Church of Christ.
I do.
I see you there occasionally.
Yes.
How long have you been there?
Well, in October 2015, when I could no longer preach, I had my heart surgery followed by other surgeries and the pacemaker implant and then the heart ablation. I haven't preached but one time since October 2015. So I've been going to Granny White basically when I got out of the hospital in rehab. Mm-hmm. Actually, it's really January before I could get out much, 2016. But I would go there occasionally, you know, if there's snow on the ground, we didn't have services, services somewhere else, go there. I love it there.
Now, you're also well known in Lipscomb lore as being a very large sports fan. They say that you show up with a purple jacket, I believe that same tie,
Yes.
and Lipscomb horns that come out. And I have a couple of quotes here I want to tell you. The athletic director, Philip Hutchinson, says, "If there was a Mount Rushmore of Lipscomb sports fans, you would be on it." And the assistant athletic director, Andy Lane, says, "You are one of the most devoted fans in the history of Lipscomb sports." How did you wind up becoming one of the top sports fans?
Perhaps they're generous with words, but I do like sports in general. When I was in high school, I played all the sports they let a man play.
Oh, okay, so you're an athlete.
Yeah, we just had 2, football and basketball. But when I got to junior college, I went out for baseball the first time. And I remember the first time the coach asking the players that were going out for the team, you know, where you played and position and so forth. I had to admit that I never played organized baseball. And I hadn't. But it was a small school and the starting center fielder quit. So I moved up first string. I like sports, all sports. I'm not as big in soccer as I'd like to be, but I'm learning. And we have a good coach and very good team this year. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Now, they also mentioned to me that you keep the stats of the players, the score, that you are more aware of the numbers before the people are on the basketball court, for example. So you track all the scores.
I keep a running score. And
how many points each
points
player
and
have
fouls,
scored. And
fouls. And my grandson, who will be 5 next month, likes to identify the number with a person. In the game against Belmont, Battle of the Boulevard, he became aware of the fact there's a scoreboard that has names and numbers, and there are people on the floor with the same names and numbers and on my program. So when he comes to the house, he likes to read those.
You're teaching him math from
Right.
a young age through the world of sports.
Right. You know, if you got 32 and hit a three-pointer, it's 35. You got 32 and hit a two-pointer, it's just 34. Hit a free throw, 32 and one, it's 33. Hey, excuse me, other times it could be math. Yeah, everything's math.
Now, you're also writing a book, or have finished a book on,
Well,
on Lipscomb trivia.
I have 1,150 questions, but I'll probably delete some of those. I have 28 sections or categories, but I may rearrange that and it may go up to 29 sections or categories. And I may get it down to 1,000 questions. I think it'd be pretty neat in the narrative to talk about 1,000 twisted and tweaked questions.
Well, I'll purchase that book when it is published. I'd like to know 1,000 Lipscomb trivia questions. What are some of the questions? Are they difficult questions?
Some of them are, but some are not. I've got a one section, firsts. First things at Lipscomb, you know. Academically, athletically. When I first started writing this, I thought I would have maybe 6 or 8 sections, but it's built up to 28 and maybe 29.
Wow.
I got all the sports. I have like academics. I have acronyms. I have attire or dress. I have presidents. That's a section.
You've done a lot of research.
Yes.
That's a lot of things you have to cover.
And I've looked at every backlog that they have in the library, and most of them twice. And I'll be going back just to clarify, you know. Some of the old backlogs had more information for me than the last 20 years, for instance. And I enjoy going back, and I can see pictures and read about people that I heard about, I heard preach or read about, you know.
Wow.
For instance, 1918, Brother B.C. Goodpasture, and the first gospel preacher I remember, Gilbert Gibbs, graduated the same year, 1918. I don't know, probably just before it became David Lipscomb College. I think it's still Nashville Bible School. But it's interesting, they got a bachelor's degree then.
Wow.
And I visited Brother Gibbs' son, Johnny Gibbs, in Lawrenceburg, and I got a picture, 1917, 1918 class. Or it was maybe 12 that graduated. But he has a BA degree. Brother Goodpasture and Brother Gibbs both got a BA degree. They offered BA, BS, and a BL, Bachelor of Literature. They emphasized literature.
Now this year, I think it's this year, is the 125th anniversary of Lipscomb University.
No, this last year, 2016.
Okay, so it was last year.
Yeah.
So you've gone back 126
Right.
years and
Yes,
researched Lipscomb.
on my bag over there, I've got 125 year celebrating Lipscomb. Yes, in fact, I've gone back a little bit before, kind of laid the groundwork. I don't have much narrative, but see, Talbot Fanning, for whom the dorm over here is named, started Franklin College. And that was one of the biggest colleges, biggest Christian colleges east of the Mississippi River. Huge in Mississippi, in Tennessee, in this area. And he had a great influence, like David Lipscomb graduated from there, along with T.B. Larimore, William Lipscomb, I believe, and many others. So that was a few years before Lipscomb.
You've done a lot of historical
Yes.
research as well.
This is, I guess, a poor excuse for a history of Lipscomb in questions, trivia questions.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it. No one else might enjoy it, but I have enjoyed it.
Have you ever written any other books?
Just my
Or-
dissertation, and I've written a few essays and eulogies, but no other book.
What about your personal life, your family life? Where were you born and raised?
I was born in Lawrence County, a place called St. Joseph. We call it St. Joe, Tennessee, just a few miles from the Alabama line, north of Florence, Alabama. And back in those days, we moved every year. A sharecropper, just
your
about
family was sharecroppers.
Yeah, sharecroppers. We just moved around, and finally, I guess about 6 years old, 5 or 6, we moved to a nice farm, had good fertile land. My aunt allowed her brother, my dad, and family to move there, so that was a period of time, formative years for me. It was just fertile ground for learning and for fostering memories on the farm, big orchard. So we lived there, and I started to a one teacher school. I might be the only Lipscomb teacher that went to a one teacher school in the last several decades, I would guess. But, and then I got to go to a consolidated school, then went to Loretta High School. It's the one of 3 high schools in Lawrence County. It's a good high school. Oddly enough, Dr. Justin Myrick went to Loretta High, is now the Dean of the School of Engineering here at Lipscomb. So Loretta was, I think, better than the average high school. And I've gone back there to present the Hollman Medal at graduation. Gives me an opportunity to tell the audience that my parents cherished education. And at Loretta, you can get good one.
Beginnings, and you went to college and pursued higher education.
I was the first of my immediate family to get a college education. I was the second out of all of my cousins to get a bachelor's degree. And Dad was one of 11. And some of them had big families. It was a bunch of cousins. And I was the second to get a bachelor's degree.
Wow. What, were you raised in the church?
Well, yes, we went some. We did not go regularly. Some of the time we didn't even have a car. I remember when we didn't have a car. And we had a little Avery tractor with a trailer. And I remember we went to a gospel meeting. We got on that trailer, and Dad drove the Avery tractor down to across the line into Alabama. So my parents, especially my mother, certainly spiritually inclined. And whenever we had the opportunity, we did go, but we did not go as regularly as my family went.
Right. Well, that makes a little bit sense to me of a story I heard of you and one of my former professors at Lipscomb, Harvey Floyd, were gardeners.
That's
So
true.
you've enjoyed gardening, and
Yes, I have.
did gardening with Dr. Floyd? Did you have a mutual interest in gardening?
Well, he loved it and I loved it too. Just the other day, I went to see Brother McKelvey, and we had a Bible study. And I saw a little book there on an end table in the guest room by Caldwell about the gardening. And I flipped through there, and there was a poem near the end of that book on the garden, and asked Brother McKelvey if I could borrow that because I wanted to read at least some of it, but I wanted to put that poem. I have an essay on the garden. I preached on the garden several years ago, different places, and whenever I find a point or a scripture or a poem or something, I add to it. So it's not the most coherent, but it's like 12 pages, an essay on garden. I started out with the sermon, The Gardens of God.
Wow.
Garden of Eden, to Revelation, the orchard where grows the tree of life. Then Ezekiel calls it the Garden of God, and the Garden of Gethsemane and other places. So I started out with a sermon, but now I've made it into an essay. I guess I ought to go back and revamp it, and redo it, and make it more like an essay. But I enjoy gardens, yes.
Vegetable gardening,
Yes,
flowers?
yeah, both. And Harvey Floyd was cultivating a little plot down here, a special school a few blocks from here that allowed some of the friends and neighbors around there just to go in with permission and your name checked off. You have a little plot there. Well, Harvey Floyd had a plot, and he kept it meticulously clean. a perfectionist. I thought I wanted a clean garden, and I think, grass should not grow with tomatoes or okra, or to get it out. But he would carry a Kroger bag by the row, and he would pick up that little twigs and put in there and carry that out so he wouldn't have a chance to regerminate or gain foothold again. Yeah,
He approached gardening like he approached biblical Greek.
I would think so.
Very carefully.
I would think so. And he had a wonderful harvest. I remember one time, it might have been the first year I was down there maybe 5 or 6 years. He had some of the most beautiful cayenne pepper plants I've ever seen.
Wow.
The kind you see in a seed catalog.
Yeah.
I mean, he had them.
Yeah.
And I was teaching statistics at school at Lipscomb University, and I thought that'd be a good project to have my students to each one get a pod and to statistically analyze it, measure it, weigh it, count the seeds, just statistically analyze that pod. And I asked him if I could have one plant. He thought for a moment. I didn't know if he was going to say yes or no. He said, "Yes, Doy, you can have it." And so I did. I got that. I don't have any pods of cayenne pepper on that plant. I'd say 75 or 100. It's tremendous. In fact, I have a cayenne pepper plant over here on Grandview right now, and I bet you I've got close to 100 pods on it.
Wow.
A good year with good nourishment, you can get a lot of pods of hot pepper, that's for sure. Anyway, I let my statistics students analyze them, and I told them that that's hot pepper. But some did not take that to heart. And in their write-up, they would say, if you touch your lips or your face, oh, it will burn. And somebody just, yeah. And he raised good tomatoes, beans, corn, good gardener.
Wow.
In fact, I need to go back and add to my garden essay. I need to put a couple of paragraphs about Harvey there. I need to do that.
Let me ask you about your family, wife, children. Where'd you meet your wife? How many children?
Yes, I have a wonderful wife and 2 wonderful children, and now 2 grandchildren. As of September the 7th, the second one was born. But I met my wife through one of my roommates at college, at Middle Tennessee State College at that time. And then we have 2 children, one born in 1979, Matthew Ray Hollman, and then our daughter, born July the 4th, 1983. I say she's independent, and my wife says she's a firecracker. Actually, she's both. And she's now the special collection librarian at Lipscomb.
Right, I heard that. She works at
So
Lipscomb.
I got a wonderful family. And
Second generation Holman working at Lipscomb University.
that's
And
right.
you have two grandchildren.
Right. I have Carter, who will be 5 next month, October the 12th. And then Alicia Sophia Rivera was born September the 7th, just last month.
Well, what advice would you have for future Lipscomb students coming out into the world, the working world, the world about them in this day and time we live? Would you have any advice for them?
For the students coming in?
Yeah, the students coming out of Lipscomb.
Oh, out of Lipscomb, graduate from Lipscomb, and go out into the world?
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot more to life than college life. James Bryant Conant, the president of Harvard, said in 1936, 300 years after Harvard was founded, 1936, it said, a person coming on a university is coming on hallowed ground. I didn't come to Lipscomb as a student, but I came as a teacher on hallowed ground. But the students need to remember, when they come to Lipscomb, it's somewhat of a sheltered environment or atmosphere. And many colleges are like that. But when you leave, your faith is tested, and a lot of your friends are no longer close. And your mentors may be miles away. So you need to be prepared. Let your faith be a verb. be active,
Good
read.
advice. Good advice. How would you like to be remembered from your time at Lipscomb?
Well, I haven't thought a lot about that, but in the memorial service just an hour or so ago, our beloved Dr. Jim Jackson, who was a music professor and head of the music department for 15, 17 years. But in the eulogy there, well, actually on the program, I guess, he quoted Frank Sinatra, how he'd like to be remembered. And I don't know the exact quote, but it's, I would like to be remembered, especially by my family. It ended up by my family. My immediate family, extended family, my church family. I'd like to be remembered.
Right.
He was a man of his word. Good man. Tried to be a good man.
Right.
Made mistakes, admitted them, move on, keep trusting.
Well, Doy, you will be remembered well from generations of your former students and colleagues. And thank you so much for all you've done for Lipscomb University and the Kingdom of God.
Thank you, Drew. I appreciate it very much. It's been my
Love you, brother.
pleasure.